and I am super excited to welcome Tori Goldhammer to the stage, who is going to walk us through a very innovative program that's in the Washington D.C. But also we can make this a general discussion on universal design and aging in place and what have you. Tori, welcome. And as we announce the results of our poll, is it proper for me to ask you, are you rooting for a Super Bowl team this weekend?
Well, I'm afraid to tell everybody that I'm a Giants fan, so it would be very difficult for me to root for Philly.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see what the audience says here, and I'm going to end this poll, and I'm going to share the results. And shocker, the don't cares win. All right, 50% of our audience could care less about who wins, and it looks like the Eagles are. And I typed this in at the very while I was starting the discussion, so forgive those Eagles fans for not putting an S at the end of that poll question there. But really interesting. And all right, so Super Bowl weekend, but let's get our appetizers all ready to go for Sunday. So all right, so let's see, Tori, we're going to dive into this discussion today, but before we do that, let's let everybody get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led to your current career path and being involved with this innovative program.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for having me, and it's nice to meet everybody. So I'm Tori. I'm an occupational therapist, and I have been one since I lose track of the years. I graduated in 1999. Before that, believe it or not, I was a buyer for Home Shopping Network in Florida, and I went back to grad school and became an OT.
Wow.
So interesting background. Yeah, and so as an occupational therapist, I have worked in all kinds of settings. I've been in hospitals, rehab hospitals, nursing homes, long-term care facilities, home health, and just sort of through all that experience, my place of interest and where I felt like I was the most useful was to work with people in the community and work with them in their homes.
Great, great. Okay, and then I'm always intrigued by and you have a lot of you've got alphabet soup behind your name. So MS, that's Masters in Science. Right. OTR, that's occupational therapy.
It is, and the R is registered and the L is licensed. So the L is the most important for anybody working with an OT.
Okay, and then ATP.
ATP, so that's assistive technology practitioner. So I also specialize in helping people nowadays with smart homes. It's advanced a lot since I got my first certification.
Okay, and then the ECHM, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, that's Executive Certificate in Home Modifications.
Wow. Okay,
from
now
USC.
CAPS, Certified Aging in Place Specialist. I know that one. And then the CEAC.
That's a Certified Environmental Accessibility Consultant.
Okay. And then the last one, CS. Yes.
It's a Certified Fall Prevention Specialist.
Holy cow. I had no idea that these designations existed. And, you know, it'd be great is that after our discussion, if you can send me the links to those certifying bodies, I think that would be a great addition to our the page that has the recording on it. I think folks would be very interested. Those all sound very relevant, and I actually would love to have you come back and we could dive into some of those certification programs because I had no idea half of them existed. Absolutely. So, all right, well, let's kick this off, and just so the audience knows what my game plan is today. And number one, I want to spotlight this innovative program in DC that makes home improvements more affordable and accessible to everybody, with the hopes that there might be some people in the DC area that could take advantage of it and you didn't know about it. Okay, But what we realize is our audience is from all over the world now. And so perhaps this could be inspirational for you to talk to leadership in your community, and you can share this recording, and perhaps we can replicate or try to replicate this in communities across the country. But then the bigger thing that I'm interested in is just the overall discussion on, how do we make our homes safe and accessible? So folks, even though we're talking about this program, don't hesitate to sort of, if you got a question about grab bars or anything like that, we got Tori here, and you heard her certifications. We can probably have a really educated discussion on the overall topic of universal design and safe and accessible. So with that, I'm going to duck behind the curtain. I want to remind everybody in the audience that the best part of these discussions is they're live and interactive. So just type in any questions using Q&A or into chat, and we will make sure to address them. And then Tori, feel free to check in with me periodically if you want to take a little break from your PowerPoint, and I'll let you know if anything has come in the queue.
Okay, great. Sounds great. Yes, please. And actually, I really enjoy having interactive presentations as well. So absolutely type in those questions and we'll talk about them. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, but I do want to emphasize what Steve said, that it would be my goal for this program to be replicated anywhere that it can be. So some of this presentation is how it was created, and then at the end are some outcomes and some data that we're working on. So I'm very happy to share that if anybody has any specific questions once the presentation is over about how to bring it to your community. But let me go ahead and share my screen. And if I'm talking too fast, you might have figured out because I'm a Giants fan, I'm a New Yorker, you tell me to slow down. Okay, so the program is called Safe at Home, and you'll see there's two logos there. So the one on the left is the Department of Aging and Community Living. They are the funders of the program. And on the right is Home Care Partners. That is the nonprofit that actually I work for. So we'll get a little bit of it into that and how that all happened. But I want to give you a little bit of background before I even tell you this part. So the reason why I started advocating for the Safe at Home program was I was working in Georgetown Hospital in DC as an occupational therapist. And in the hospital, my job was to help determine where a person would go once they were ready to leave the hospital. So if somebody needed rehab or if they were able to go home. And there was quite a number of people who were unable to go home only because of an environmental barrier. It wasn't that they necessarily needed to have rehab, but maybe they just couldn't do stairs for a couple of weeks. And because of that, they were unable to go home. And that was a very difficult conversation to have with them and their family. And I found it frustrating personally for me, because I thought that seems like there must be a solution to that. So that's what led me to the path of trying to figure out what modifications can be put in place in order to make decisions about discharge that can help people go home if they wanted to. And it led me on my journey, because I realized that, yes, in fact, there are solutions to have people navigate the stairs and deal with those situations, but sometimes they're very expensive and people can't afford them. So I started working with some nonprofits and advocating here in DC, and we worked with, we advocated with the city council and with the mayor's office and did testifying. And 6 years later, we got the program. So the mission of the program, as you can see, is to promote aging in place for older adults and people with disabilities in Washington, DC, by offering home adaptations that reduce the risk of falling and eliminate the barriers to mobility. So I just wanted to read that. It's a lot of words there. But you can see we work with older adults and adults with disabilities. And we primarily do modifications to the home. And in my photographs, I'll show you what that means. So we don't do any remodeling, in fact, partly because we have a budget and partly just because of the time frame that we want to do things as quick as possible and as efficiently as possible. So we do mostly modifications. The program began as a pilot in 2015. They gave us a small budget and we were able to show some really great outcomes for it. And it was formally launched in January of 2016. So it's been 7 years now. And then the funny thing was, after the launch of the program in October, the DC Council actually passed the Safe at Home Act of 2016. So it had already been launched and was already running, but now it's actually, I was telling Steve, it's actually become quite institutionalized in DC. All right, so who is eligible for our program? So it's any Washington, DC resident. And the nice thing that I'm so pleased that they did is you can be a renter or an owner. Quite often these housing programs are for people who own their homes, but fortunately we are able to work with renters as well. Of course, if we're going to install things like grab bars or railings, things like that, we have to get permission of the landlord. But even without permission from the landlord, we can come up with things, and I'll talk to you about that. So they have to be DC residents. Again, they have that age requirement, and they have to be at 80% of the area median income or lower, which is actually very generous. Fortunately, this comes from the housing, from HUD. Most often, a lot of the HUD programs use this particular metric. So we were able to use this, and it's, as you can see, it's pretty generous right there. So how does it work? Okay, so each eligible household, and we'll talk the eligibility we just went through, that's the age, the residency, and the income. So each eligible household can receive funding for adaptations and modifications up to $6,000. So they're not actually getting the money to then pay somebody. What happens is we, our team knows that we have a budget of up to $6,000 that we can recommend modifications in. And so the homeowner or the renter, the person, doesn't have to pay for anything. It's 100% grant for them. So the home modifications are based on an occupational therapist evaluation. So currently there are 4 of us on staff, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what we do when we go out there. But it's nice because we removed, it's not the contractors themselves that are making the recommendations, it's the OTs that are making the recommendations based on our clinical experience and based on our visit with the client and doing some standardized assessments. And typical modifications are going to be, we do a lot of stair lifts, a whole ton of stair lifts. We do some ramps, a lot of handrails, grab bars. The nice thing though, because again, I think because you have the OT component to this, we do things besides just grab bars. We recommend shower chairs and bedside commodes and bed handles and other smaller items that can actually make as big of a difference, if not more helpful sometimes, depending on the situation. And we could even do small products. So we order a lot from Amazon. We do a lot of night lights, bath mats, reachers. So we try to be very comprehensive. So if you're going to apply for the program, they've actually made it very easy, which is nice. It shouldn't be too burdensome to submit your documents. So we need proof of age, which quite often is just a driver's license. Proof of residency, again, the driver's license works for that. So most often people just submit a driver's license for those 2 things. And then proof of income. Now, anybody who's receiving DC public benefits is automatically eligible. So we just need some sort of documentation to show that. Or the most recent year's tax return, or some sort of income statement so that we can verify income. So it's really nice because it's not a complicated or burdensome application process at all. All right. So what happens? So if somebody's interested in Safe at Home, they actually have to call the Department of Aging and Community Living, where they do an intake, and they send them over to our office being the one at Home Care Partners. And our Home Care Partner staff then calls them, explains what documentation they need to send in, and they're enrolled in the program, assuming they meet the criteria. So the first thing that happens is one of the occupational therapists goes out, and what we do is we really talk to the person and really try to understand what their concerns are in the house. And we make this as individualized as possible. So for example, if they're not interested in going into their kitchen, we don't even really worry about the kitchen. Or if there's another space in their house that they never use, we don't worry about it. On the other hand, if there's a place that's very, very important to them, we make sure that we prioritize that. So it's very individualized. And we do standardized assessments that we've learned from our clinical days so that we can actually really get a good, solid, objective picture of the person, their risk of falling, get some idea about their medical history, things like that. And then we walk around the house with them and we go to the spaces that are important to them and we talk to them about what their concerns are. We watch them do transfers if it's safe. So for example, we would watch them get in and out of the tub or on and off the toilet, and then make recommendations with them. Then before we leave, we do sit down and go over the recommendations and just make sure that they're in agreement with it, because this research will show that anytime something is prescribed to somebody that they're really not interested in, they're going to abandon it. So we don't want them to abandon it. We want it to be something that they want in their house, they understand will be helpful for them. And then when we're finished with our visit, we come back to our offices and we write the scope of work. So we have selected contractors. There is an application process for the contractors, and they're all vetted. And most of the ones we have working for us have been working with us since day one, so we trust them. Additionally, we have pre-selected all of the items and they've all been priced. So it's really easy because it's almost at this point now that we just put the menu together of all the different items for that particular person and make sure it fits within that budget. And then when it's done, we go back, the occupational therapists either go back in person or call on the phone using photographs of the completed work from the contractor, make sure that everything is working as we hoped, talk about how to use it, and provide any additional items. So maybe the person has decided this grab bar is so helpful here, I could use another one there. At that moment, we have the chance to add an additional item. So I think I'm going to stop there because that was a lot of information. I'm going to show you some photographs of spaces, but before I move on, Steve, let me know what's going on in the chat.
Yeah, actually, okay. We had, here it is. Okay, so, and I know that this is sort of departing from this program, but I think it's a good discussion topic. And Kathleen says, what's the best way to go about finding what kind of person with appropriate credentials are available for a friend in northern Westchester County whose husband is newly and significantly disabled and will be back home in a few weeks? And I found a list of certified aging in place specialists in Westchester County, New York, and I sent that to Kathleen. But Tori, are there any other suggestions on how she might be helpful to her friend?
Sure. So yeah, the CAPS, the certified aging in place, is a good place to start. So the one thing to know about CAPS is that they are listed as either there are therapists that are CAPS certified and contractors that are CAPS certified. So what I try to tell people is if you sort of know that you have a specific challenge, that you can have a contractor come and take a look. Like, for example, getting in the house is the only problem you have. You just need a ramp to get in and out of the house. A contractor is fabulous for that. They can come out, measure, give you quotes. If it's very complicated and you really don't know where to start, that there's multiple barriers and multiple concerns, you might want to start with a therapist and then move on to a contractor.
And then another thing that just occurred to me is that because this person has been, like, a lot of times people have a prescription for rehab, occupational, physical, what have you, that could also be a great place to start, is that if you've got a prescription for therapy and occupational therapy is part of that, is talking with that therapy practice and see if they have an occupational therapist that could come in the home and make suggestions on improvements and perhaps connect them with an appropriate contractor. Is that another solution?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely working. And so that's a great point. Absolutely working with your current therapist or their current therapist, having doing a video. If the therapist often can't get out to the homes based on reimbursement, but the beauty is that now you can do so many video things. So you could video interactively go through the house and show where the challenges are. That would be great. And very important, because a lot of times I realized that when I was in the clinic, I would prescribe a shower chair or a toilet riser or something like that with having no idea what was actually in the bathroom and whether or not it would actually fit. So having that opportunity to do that with a therapist would be great. Additionally, we work here. There are therapists in the community that, for example, if I have somebody here who's in rehab and they need to go home, I connect with a therapist in the rehab and find out exactly what their functional status is and what's happening, and then can try to make that picture happen at home too. So yes,
Okay.
those therapists are valuable.
Just a couple of other questions, and then we'll let you get back to your slide. I want to definitely address Dorothy's comment where she says, we live in Philadelphia. Is this webinar only relevant to DC area residents? It seems all the chat comments relate to the geographic area. Well, Dorothy, number one, your team is in the Super Bowl. So there's some relevant comments for Philadelphia. I say that with my tongue in cheek. Dorothy, as you can see, the request for information in Westchester County, New York, there are people from all over, and our goal is to spotlight this specific DC area program for folks because we want to encourage it to be replicated. But our hope today is to have an overall discussion on safe and accessible homes and universal design. So hang in there with us for a little bit, and hopefully we won't have too much regional DC talk because basically this is relevant to everybody who lives in a home. And then the other question that I want to address before we send you back to the PowerPoint is Madhu says, is this program, will this program work if a person lives in an apartment and they don't own their property? Can they still qualify for this program?
Yes, absolutely. And it's really been helpful. And I apologize for Philadelphia. I certainly want to make sure that with these photographs, I can show you what we do. And as Steve said, hopefully help advocate for our program in Philly. But regarding the renters, yes, absolutely. So we try, if a person needs grab bars, as I said, we have to get permission from the landlord to do installations. But if we can't, we can often come up with really good solutions just using medical equipment and some removable items to achieve the same outcome. So absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, let's let you get back to the slide deck. And again, for those that I know that everybody's sort of like, is this program in Arlington? Is it in Montgomery County? We want to help you create a program. We want to see lawmakers and leaders create a program like this in every jurisdiction. And that's part of the reason we're doing this. But we also want you to hang in there, and we want to answer general questions. And I think once you start seeing some of these photos, it's gonna, the light bulbs are gonna start popping on and it'll trigger more questions. Okay, back to you, Tori.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please, anybody in any region, I'm going to show you a little bit of data at the end that I'm happy to share with you to try to help you advocate in your jurisdictions to have this program. It's been remarkable. It really has. Okay, so I'm just going to, I have slides of certain rooms in the house or certain spaces in our homes. This is not comprehensive by any means, and I can come back and do a much more comprehensive one of just modifications for you. But I wanted to give you some examples. And again, our program is based on making adaptations versus remodeling. So I'm going to try to give you some prices so you get an idea of like how simple some of these things are and how maybe it is something that's accessible to you in your space. So of course, grab bars. We know grab bars are essential for anybody of any age. I put them into my bathroom when my daughter was 5 years old because she couldn't step over the side of the tub. So they are part of a universal design concept as well as just being useful for anybody. We put them in almost every shower. So these are two photographs that look similar, but what I want to show you is the typical on the left-hand side. The typical installation is to have a vertical grab bar at the side that you're stepping in and out of, and a horizontal grab bar on the inside wall there, like above the soap dish. The little one in the corner is in fact a grab bar. It's in both of those photographs, as you can see. So there are some grab bar companies out there that have concealed grab bars. that you wouldn't know they're a grab bar. They have towel racks and toilet roll holders and these little corner dishes and soap dishes and things. So you have lots and lots of options for grab bars to fit within your bathroom. But the key is that you want to make sure you've got something at the entrance and something inside to hold on to once you're inside. And you can see on the picture on the left too, we often, if we do a handheld shower, there is a very inexpensive clamp that goes onto a grab bar that will hold that handheld shower there. So if you're sitting in a shower chair, it can be accessible to you, or you can put it up at the top. And then the picture on the right, if you see that white pole with a sort of a curvy arm to it, that's called a super pole. So this is one of the things that we can do in an apartment. So if a landlord will not allow us to drill into the tiles to install those grab bars, we use this super pole. And a super pole is tension mounted from the floor to the ceiling. And it's amazing because it can provide the same level of support as a grab bar, but can be used almost anywhere as long as the ceiling accommodates. It won't work with a drop ceiling, but almost any other ceiling it will work with. You can put them next to beds, next to chairs, by the shower, by the toilet. So they're a really great solution for us. And as far as research is concerned, grab bars are one of the 2 modifications, we're going to talk about the other one, that have been proven to reduce your risk of falling. So everybody needs a grab bar, at least one. So toilets, these are challenging, I'm thinking most people realize, because standard toilets are 15 inches tall, which is quite low. I'm 5 feet tall and they work for me, but anybody over 5 feet, they seem kind of low. So you can replace your toilet with what's called a comfort height toilet, which are typically 17 inches. But you can also modify your existing toilet without having to get those drugstore risers that you probably see. So these are the 3 that we use in the program. The one on the far left, I don't even know if you can see that it's a riser, but it's between the toilet seat and the toilet. And it's a 3.5-inch hinged riser. It's about $40 on Amazon, and it changes your 15-inch toilet to an 18-inch toilet. And you can raise it up. It's bolted on, so it's secure. You can raise it up to clean underneath it. And it's really, really easy to install. And actually, even in that same photo, you can see the toilet roll holder is a grab bar. So that's another example of one of those concealed grab bars. The picture in the middle, we found that some people didn't need 3 inches. For me, 3 inches is probably a little too much, actually. So the picture in the middle is a 2-inch riser. And that's, as you can see, actually all it is a toilet seat with the bumpers are a little bit higher. So we can get 2 inches for that. And then the one on the far right, this is a new one by Bemis, the regular toilet seat manufacturer. This is also 3 inches and it's hinged. So rather than having the spacer that we do on the far left, this is actually another toilet seat that gives you 3 inches, and you can use the handles or you can take the handles off. So the point of this is that there are so many options to make your toilet higher without having to replace your toilet. You're looking anywhere from $50 to maybe $150 for the Bemis one versus replacing a toilet, which of course you can do as well. So one of the challenges that people have is stepping over the sides of their tubs. We have a couple of solutions for that. This is the easiest solution. It's something called a tub transfer bench. And as you can see, there's 2 legs on the outside and 2 legs on the inside. So what happens is the person sits at the edge and swings their leg in while they're sitting. So this is generally one of the first things we'll consider if somebody's having trouble stepping over the side of their tub, because a transfer bench is now, I think it's $90, I believe. So without remodeling, we can often get people into their tub shower space without the significant cost of that. And there again, you can see the grab bars. Now, sometimes that won't work. And so this is our solution for the program, because again, it fits within our budget constraints and it's very quick versus remodeling. So it's called a tub cut, as you can see. And there are 2 versions of it. So the version on the left is a pre-constructed filler, and the one on the right is a custom one. We use the prefabricated filler most often because it's just faster and easier for them to install. And you're looking at, I think it's like $1,500 or $1,600 for that right now. The one on the right we use for custom. So depending on the person's preference, or if it's a particularly difficult tub that happened to be a cast iron tub in Georgetown, it was just better to do the custom. And that was just a little bit more, I think maybe $1,700 or $1,800. So the nice thing about these tub cuts is here you are transforming your tub into a shower without remodeling. So you'll achieve the same effect for much less cost and mess. And I don't know about the rest of the country. I'm assuming even in Philly and some of the old homes, you still have these clawfoot tubs. We come across these all the time. And these are just some examples of things that we can do. So this will give you a good idea that even if you can't actually remove or remodel the space, there are still solutions. So there are chairs that sit on the side of the tub. There are chairs that go inside the tub. There are swivel chairs, there are pivot chairs, there are sliding chairs. There's so many chairs that can work in any tub, in any situation. And this is where it does become helpful, I think, to work with a therapist who's familiar with what's out there, because frankly, even for us, it can be a little overwhelming, the selection. And that's why it's important to really match the item that's chosen for the space and for the person to make sure it works for them. But the good news is for anybody who has a clawfoot tub, fear not, because we very rarely is it that we can't come up with a solution for a clawfoot tub. Okay, before I go to stairs, I don't know, Steve, should I ask any questions about bathrooms, or should I keep going on stairs?
Well, we can move, but I want, a lot of this is we experiment with how to promote these discussions, and hindsight being 2020, what I like about what you're sharing with us is these are affordable modifications that people can do. So if I had to sort of reset this, I would say the topic can be affordable, safe and accessible improvements, and spotlighting a program in DC. I love what you're sharing there, and because these are very affordable solutions, and we can as we talk later in the discussion, we can probably dive into some of the very expensive solutions that people might utilize, but I really like that. And on that note, there's actually a Jennifer asks a question, and let's address this now. It says, I'm a Westchester-based certified aging in place specialist through NAHB. I'm interested to know how you're able to spec and install this many items and modifications for $6,000, especially if it includes a chairlift. Do the residents need to contribute if it's a higher than the limit? But I think you've sort of shared, it takes creativity, but if you're utilizing a bunch of more affordable solutions, then you can maybe budget the dollars towards something that's essential that costs more. Is that how it's done?
Yes, exactly. So exactly. Thank you for the question. So it's really important that whether you're a consumer on the call or whether you're a provider, that you really understand what the priorities are and really make sure that you address those priorities and then fill in around it. So you need to understand like what the budget is, what the priorities are, what the person can do, what the space looks like, and then come up with mix and match as best as possible to achieve them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then since you've got the clawfoot tub on the screen, Linda asks, how does the homeowner or resident wash up in the clawfoot tub? Water is still going downward to the bottom. I'm assuming that they're going to be showering in the tub and not taking a bath.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, we do. These have handheld showers. If they don't, we also have a tub lift that will bring them down to soak in the tub. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
well, yeah. Jump back on and we'll tackle the rest of the questions
All right.
later.
Yep. Okay, so the next area that always is a challenge for us are stairs, of course. And so again, I'm trying to show this to you in a little bit of like the least complex to the most complex in some ways. So the least complex is to add railing on both sides of the stairs. And these are 3 different pictures to show you. This would be the second modification. If I didn't already say that, this is the second modification that has been proven by research to help reduce the risk of falling. So again, having grab bars in your bathroom and 2 railings on stairs are essential for any home. The picture on the left, you can see there's a railing going across the pickets at the top on the left-hand side there. And I wanted to show that because I often go into houses where people are getting to that part of the stairs and they're grabbing the pickets, which can come out and have come out. So it is possible to install railing across those pickets. The middle picture is just straight. Actually, that's my staircase. And the picture on the right, it's essential on these curved stairs to make sure that you have railing on the wider part of the stairs. A lot of staircases that have these curved stairs have the banister on the skinny part of the little pie there, where you don't really have enough space for your feet. So you want to make sure that you have railing around the entire curve of the stairs. So, and I wanted to show you this as well. So we often use wood rail, of course, on the stairs, but iron rail, for even for inside the house, can be really quite useful because it's so flexible and so adaptable. So if you work with somebody that has stairs inside of their home, like for a sunken living room, let's say, or that kind of situation, we use iron railing inside to give them some support going up and down those stairs. So railings are very important. Now, we can talk about the stair lift. So let's say 2 railings is not sufficient and they're still having trouble getting up the stairs. We absolutely will install a stair lift. There's some criteria for stair lifts though. Stair lifts should be used for anybody that can get on and off of them essentially by themselves. For somebody that's maybe having some shortness of breath or some balance issues or some pain when they're going up and down the stairs, they should not be used in a situation where somebody is going from a wheelchair and needs a lot of assistance to get on and off of the stair lift, because it's too unsafe, particularly at the top of the stairs, to help somebody off of the stair lift safely. So our criteria is that the person more or less has to be able to walk to it, get on and off of it by themselves, maybe with somebody standing by. And the thing about stair lifts is that they actually run on batteries, which is nice. So if the power goes out, you won't be stuck in the middle of the stairs. But they are continually charged. The thing to know is that the batteries do need to be replaced every approximately 3 years or so. So there's a cost to that. And I didn't mention cost. So our stair lifts are about $3,200 for the straight stair lifts. Now, before I move on to anything else, if you have curves in your stairs, there are curved stair lifts. The curved stair lifts are custom made specifically for your home. And as a result, they're significantly more expensive. So while a straight stair lift might be about $3,200, a curve can be anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 to $18,000, depending on how many curves you actually have on your staircase. So it's pretty significantly different. And then for outside the house, you want to have the same sort of idea. You want to have 2 railings. This is the way we always start again, making sure you've got 2 railings to hold on to. And I don't know about, across the country, I'm assuming it's the same. It's pretty remarkable how many exterior stairs do not have railings on them. So we install a lot of iron rail on the outside of homes. The middle picture is interesting. So again, we want to encourage this using both hands while you're going up and having railing on both sides. So if your stairs are greater than the width of your arms, we can install iron railing in the middle and give you something to hold on to. And the question that always comes up is, how do I move things in and out of my home with that extra railing? And I don't know if you can see in the picture, but they're just bolted in versus installed as the one on the left. So the contractor can come back and remove that piece of railing if it's in the way. But so we do on both sides of the stairs, in the middle of the stairs, mounted to the wall, anywhere that you need the extra support and that we can facilitate using 2 rails at the same time. But with the inside stairs, if you have difficulty, you can do a stair lift on the outside. These are more expensive than the inside ones. These are running about $6,000 now, but they're made specifically for the outside. However, it's the same criteria. You need to make sure that you can get on and off it with as little help as possible. And the other challenge with these is if it's a person using a wheelchair, somebody has to obviously bring the wheelchair from the bottom to the top. So they're a little less convenient outside, but we're going to talk about ramps. Ramps are difficult to use particularly in an urban environment because of the space that they need. So there are a lot of exterior stair lifts within this city, and I imagine a lot of cities because of that. But we do try to do ramps where we can, because the nice thing about ramps is that obviously the person can be in the wheelchair and can get in and out without having to do any transfer. So it's going to be the safest possible option if somebody has difficulty getting in and out of their wheelchair. So these are some simple ramps. So the one on the left is called a suitcase ramp, and we use that for maybe just one stair at a temporary situation where the person just might need to put it down to get in and then remove it. It can be used on a curb to get to the street if they need to get to a van or access. The one on the right is a threshold ramp. So if you've got any of those thresholds inside the house that are troublesome, there are all kinds of threshold ramps. And then there's the full-blown ramp systems. So you can see the picture on the left. So the rule of thumb with ramps are that for every inch of rise, you need a foot of ramp. So that particular one on the left, there's only 2 stairs there, and that's a pretty significant ramp for 2 stairs, right? But that's because in order to make it the appropriate incline, it needs that much ramp. The one on the right is only 1 stair, but it was still pretty high. And so we still had to do a fairly long suitcase ramp. And we use aluminum. The reason you have easier seeing aluminum here is because they're easy to install and remove. And they don't need the same permitting that a wooden built-in feature ramp would need, because the wooden ramps are actually a structure built onto your house where there's concrete footing and it's built onto your house. So it requires permitting and it's more expensive typically. These aluminum ones are maintenance-free, easy to install and easy to remove. But certainly wooden ramps are an option if it's your home and you wanted to make it more aesthetically pleasing than these aluminum ones. And often, actually, if you were in a situation where it was only a temporary need, you can rent these aluminum ramps quite often from vendors across the country. So those were just a few quick areas. And Steve, if you'd like me to come back and do a much more thorough home presentation, I'd be happy to. I just wanted to make sure that we talked some more about the program. And then I'll answer some questions.
I say let's go through this, and then we've got a bunch of questions, and I think we've got a bunch of topics that we can dive into for time together.
Okay, so real quickly for this is for the Safe at Home program. For those of you that are interested, the person can come back a second time. That's it. They're allowed 2 times to work with us. So if they've worked with us and they are able to walk up and down the stairs the first time, we might do railing, and then they come back and they can't. And so that's when we install the stair lift, or et cetera, et cetera. So these are the criteria for them coming back through a second time. So real quickly, I just want to show you our outcomes. So I'm not going to go through this entire slide, but we have to date done about 5,600 jobs in 7 years, I guess. You can see the second column there is the average scope. So even though we can spend up to $6,000 as of 2017 going down, we don't always spend, we actually don't always spend 6,000. In fact, we rarely spend 6,000. So our average scope is actually anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 year to year. Our quality, we have high satisfaction ratings, which is good. We try very hard to be very customer service focused. And then as far as the scores, I'm not going to go through that with you, but what they mean is that when we're complete, people have less fear of falling in their homes, and they have less safety hazards in their homes. So because of the OTs doing the standardized assessments, we're able to show via data that's a pretty significant difference from before and after. And there's been a couple of research studies over the years, not enough, which is one of the things I'm going to say that you need. But early on in 2017, Georgetown University did a quick study and did show that there was a decrease in falling, as well as high satisfaction ratings. And then now we're partnering with American University, and they are hopefully going to continue to be a partner and continue to do analysis of our program. But again, they found a reduction in the number of falls for people who had gone through the program. And then during COVID, one of the things that we did was we called clients, and we found that there was a significant number of them had reported no falls. People who had fallen before had no falls since the modifications were installed. And lastly, we had OT students that we utilized to do the same thing. They called and they reported that there were no falls since the modification. So although I think we still need a more rigorous analysis, and hopefully American University is going to look at that, we anecdotally can see that there's a reduction in the number of falls. And so because of this, we decided to, but we've also decided to make the program more comprehensive. So this year we're adding some interventions in order to address all of the factors that may contribute to a fall. So to reduce your falls, there are 4 things to look at: the environment, your vision, medications, and balance and strength. So while Safe at Home addresses the environment, we weren't addressing the other 3 things. This year, DC is bringing in interventions for the other 3 components. So we're very fortunate that we have a great funder in DC, and we're looking forward to seeing the outcomes and the data from these additional interventions. And I would tell you, lessons learned for anybody who's looking to do this. Definitely make sure you have a good database at the onset. We've played catch up for too long. Partner with a research institution, be consistent with your goal and your mission, like stay very focused on it. Where we can't make a difference, we try to refer to our community partners, and to never stop advocating and to never stop asking, because it's amazing what the power of our power is in advocating for this type of programming, and people will listen. So that's that, and that's my contact information. So I rushed through that to last few slides, but it gives us about 10 minutes for questions.
Yeah, and basically we have a philosophy where we just go through all the questions till we're done. So
Okay.
hopefully you can hang on for a little bit.
Yes,
We'll probably
absolutely.
go over the hour.
Absolutely.
And then for those that do have to jump off, I'm just reminding you, we're recording this. All of this chat transcript is recorded. We'll get some more resources from Tori as well before we're done. Okay, let me and hopefully those of you who are outside of DC are getting some benefit to this. I think now is where we're really going to dive into some specifics. But before we do that, there's a lot of questions. Kate asked, is this in Arlington? What have you? I'm really thrilled that Melissa Bressler is on the call. She's an OT who works for Handy Pro, and she shared the Rebuilding Together program, which here I'm going to share with y'all. It's in the chat, but it's not the same as the program that we're describing, but there's, I believe, 20 states that have affiliates for Rebuilding Together. So this might be another resource for you to help somebody or help yourself in a region if you're looking for that. So let's dive into some of the other questions. Let's see, Janet says, does the program apply to apartment dwellers? And we said yes. You just need to get permission from the landlord. But then, as you saw, one of the things I like about the solutions you were bringing up, Tori, is that many of these don't require any architectural modification.
Right.
And they're affordable. I would say, though, we've had some discussions on medical equipment. Working hand in hand with an occupational therapist is very important. So, for example, Tori brought up that, hey, you can order this on Amazon for an affordable price. But if you order something, a piece of medical equipment, a chair, and it's not properly sized to you, it could be more of an accident, or it could cause injury. And so being teamed up with an OT is not a bad thing for all medical equipment. Would you agree, Tori?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Because number one, the choices are remarkable. There are so many different options. So as I mentioned, you want to select the correct choice for the person based on their balance, based on their height, their weight, the size of the size that it needs to fit in, how they transfer. So it's essential to work with an OT, but doing so, you'll be surprised how many solutions there are out there.
Great. Okay. All right. Pauline says, is the program typically under the Department of Aging in other states? This is a one of its kind operation. This is not part of a, like, Rebuilding Together is replicated around the country. This is unique, and it just happens you are in partnership with the Area Agency on Aging, correct?
I am, but I would highly suggest if anybody is thinking of asking for this program, that's the place to start. That I think that is the appropriate place for it to be housed.
I agree, and share this recording with
Yes.
your Area Agency on Aging. But Pauline also asked, do you need your primary physician to provide a referral or the OT for evaluation?
No, and that's a good question. So we're not providing medical intervention, so we're not required to have a physician. We're actually just going in as a consultant and doing the evaluation. So there is no physician
Okay,
prescription
great.
needed. Mhm.
All right, Janet has a great question, and this is specific to, now we're getting into the universal design stuff. Can shower transfer benches work in the newer deep soaking tubs? Man, I tell you what, those deep soaking tubs, and I happen to have one, are they're a universal design nightmare, aren't they? They're so deep.
There are solutions. Again, it's very specific to your area, but I say in those situations, those deep soaking tubs. So one of the things we use, if you look up a power tub lift, they're phenomenal. You can still soak in your tub. And if you just look on Amazon and Google power tub lift, you'll see them. The other solution we have are bath boards. Bath boards work really well on those deep soaking tubs. So if you want to just shower, that's a solution. Those transfer benches actually can work with extended legs. So we can make that work too. So yes, there are solutions.
Yeah, and I want to put in another plug for Melissa Bressler. She dropped a link to a bath lifter in the chat that everybody can see. But you've got a sample of a bath lifter here, and you can kind of see how it works. They've got remote control and everything. One thing that I thought was kind of cool is that this could be taken in and out so that it, let's say that you have a loved one visiting you, a parent visiting you who needs something like that, they could easily use it, and it's all totally waterproof. So thanks, Melissa, for sharing that example.
And I would say that the things to think about with that particular tub lift is that it works best for people who are under about 200, 250 pounds, not much taller than 5'6", because it'll smush you up.
Okay.
And it has to be, the surface of the bottom of the tub has to be something, because they're huge suction cups that attach. But if you have like a ridgy bottom of your tub, it won't adhere as well. So there's some caveats to them. But.
And you're really sort of speaking to the value of working with an OT, working with CAPS, working with an organization to help you through this decision making, because although some of these things are less expensive than getting a tub cut or something like that, still there's an investment here, and you want to make sure that you minimize the chances that it's going to work out for you. Right. Kate says, any recommendations on the best bed brands for lift and lowering and tilt features? We're renting a hospital bed now, but if we buy one, I'd love some suggestions.
So we don't really provide very many hospital beds, so I do not have an answer for you on that. It's not something we cover. If you're looking specifically for a hospital bed, I don't want to give you wrong information. It's not my area of expertise.
Okay. And I don't mean to make this a commercial, but Kate, if you're in the DC metro area, one of our positive aging champions is New Hampshire Medical Supply. They have a tremendous amount of hospital beds and other resources for you. And I'm happy to help you make a connection to that organization if that's helpful.
The one thing I would say about hospital beds is that they do come in sizes. So if you need either long, bariatric, or standard, often the mattresses are not very comfortable. So you might want to consider like some sort of topper for them potentially. And depending on what you need it for, sometimes it's helpful to have them obviously to raise up for transfers and for caregiver assistance, but sometimes you also want them to go as low as possible, because actually that's a way to help somebody who's maybe getting out of bed too often at night, and to reduce their risk of falling. So there's all kinds of different reasons to use hospital beds, but I just don't know a specific brand.
Great. All right. Okay, and we're getting close to the top of the hour. Just wanted to remind everybody this is recorded. Tori, are you okay hanging in there?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's some great questions, folks. Natalie says, do the chairs on the stair lifts pivot at the top?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then are there ramps for showers?
So that's a good question. Yes, you can definitely do that. You can do, and so what one of our contractors has done is they've used decking material to build sort of like a deck on in the inside of the tub, the little shower, and then use one of those suitcase ramps so you can actually go up the suitcase ramp and onto a deck, and converts the shower into a barrier-free shower.
And you know, Tori, one of the things I like about this discussion is that is you're coming up with you're sharing affordable, creative solutions. Okay, a lot of times we get wrapped up in, you know, how beautiful universal design can be, and you know, and it can be integrated into a home seamlessly so you can't see it. But many of us are going to be in a crisis situation, or we're on a budget and we need somebody who's working within a limited amount of funds and working creatively. I want to share a website that I absolutely love on this topic. If you want to see sort of the other side of improvements, this is not a universal design website. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's called Houzz, Houzz. I'll drop this into chat. But I stumbled into just how many resources Houzz has in terms of examples and stories of beautiful and creative and probably pretty expensive safe and accessible and universal design remodeling. And as you can see, is that when you're on the site, if you type in universal design, you've got stories, you've got discussions, you've got photos, and you can shop for various products as well. But I wanted to share that because I know some folks may have tuned into this and it's sort of like, well, geez, I really, don't want a stainless steel ramp in my front yard. But you got to remember that a lot of this is price and a lot of this is how quick you need it done. Okay.
Absolutely. Right. And I would say I love universal design. I totally agree with you, Steve. And I always tell people that if you're going to remodel your kitchen and you intend to stay in that house, to absolutely incorporate universal design. Same thing with the bathroom. If you're going to remodel, at a minimum, install a 17-inch high toilet. you know, so definitely take into account if you're already going to do that and you're planning for the future, or if somebody has a disability and they're younger and they intend to stay in that house for a long time and that's just kind of what their plans are, that's great. But if it's an emergency situation, like you said, or budget's an issue, there are also solutions.
Got it. Okay, Joan Green says, what was that one-step removable ramp called? I guess one of your slides.
The suitcase ramps, probably.
Suitcase ramps.
There's suitcase ramps and threshold ramps. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd never heard that term before. Okay, let's see. Please state again the geographic area that the stay-at-home covers. That's Washington, D.C. Just
it is. But I would love to, as Steve said, I will help anybody to advocate to get this to other places.
And then Joan has a question, and I know that Joan is an expert on smart devices and technology. She wonders, do you ever sort of use technology elements as something in this program, or is it strictly the more accessible items that we've been talking about?
So we did in the beginning. It's so interesting. I've never started a program and then watched its progression over time. In the beginning, we had a lot of latitude to incorporate whatever we could justify for our mission of reducing falls. So we did a lot of technology in the beginning, but as time went on, the Office on Aging really wanted us to standardize. And so they kind of restricted the items we can provide. But I absolutely think smart home devices are a big part of this.
Great. And then Janet was wondering, can you talk about modifications in the kitchen?
Yeah, so the kitchen is unless you're remodeling, in my experience, it's hard to retrofit a kitchen, right? So you're kind of looking at remodeling, or you're working with a therapist to come up with solutions. So simple things like, putting things down low, or using reachers, or having the appropriate chair in the kitchen, having an appropriate work surface in the kitchen. But in my experience, it's either activity adaptation, so working with a therapist to figure out how you use the space you have, or remodeling. There doesn't seem to be a lot of in between for kitchens.
And Janet, just to give you a glimpse, so I typed in universal design kitchen into house, and you get some really
Mhm.
creative ideas. Like a lot of it is shelving, and you know, this is this is a really neat element here where you have cutaways where somebody could either pull up a chair or roll in to various spaces. But once again, this is a wonderful uh, uh, considered a universal design with the rolling carts here. And you know, you see a lot of things that we don't see a lot of this in our kitchens. You know, the islands are blocked off, but something like this is actually beautiful, and you can have a little chair there, but somebody in a wheelchair could roll under there and be contributing to cooking or what have you. So those are a couple of little ideas for kitchens. Oh, and then let's see, let me make sure that I'm going to add Tori's email into chat. Don't worry, it'll also be there at the recording so that you can connect with her. Let me run through some of the chat questions here. Anne says best shower mats or other products to prevent slipping in the shower.
Oh, so we just, yeah, we provide shower mats. I think the one we use most often is the Gorilla shower mat, but I don't know that it matters. But yes, we absolutely offer shower mats for inside. Sometimes we use a shower mat on the outside as well, or a rug with a non-slip back on the outside.
And you know, one thing to remember about this is that, like, if you're planning in advance and you're thinking about modifying your home, there's so many creative ways to create non-slick surfaces. There's tiles, there's you know, things of that nature. But again, you know, a lot of us, we're thinking about this on the way home from the hospital. How are we gonna, you know, solve this problem? And so I'll make sure to okay, Gorilla Grip bath mat. It's here, let me make sure that this is the one that you're talking about. Whoops. Oh well, I'll if you can send me a link to that, I'm sure folks would be interested in that, and we'll put it by the recording. But the okay, all right, and let's see. Oh, okay, Tori, I'm going to let you answer this question. I've been dropping this universal design term. Kathleen, what is universal design? Can you give a quick definition?
So I'll give you my definition. I don't know that, I don't have memorized the official definition, but it's where you are using design elements in any space actually, but particularly where we're talking about in the home, where the space can be usable by almost anybody. So it's making a space usable and adaptable for people of all abilities. So for example, if I'm standing, I can use a kitchen. If I'm in a wheelchair, I can use a kitchen. If I'm a little kid, I can use a kitchen. If I'm 6'5", I can use a kitchen. So pretty much trying to incorporate in an aesthetically beautiful, design-oriented way features that will make the space accessible and usable for the most number of people.
Great. And I often tell people, like, one example that I use for universal design is that little button that's at outside all public places now that has the little guy in the wheelchair. Most people that press that button are not in a wheelchair or disabled.
Right.
That's universal design. It opens the door. If our hands are full, if we're pushing a stroller, it's not just helping somebody in a wheelchair. Let me is this the Gorilla Grip mat?
Yes, I do believe that's the one that we use most often. Yep.
Okay, great. I'll drop this into chat, into chat for folks if they're interested in that. And
yeah, universal design is used in parks, in education. It's a huge topic in education. It includes even the textbooks, like the way that people access information can be universally designed. So
okay, let's see. Okay. All right. I think that we got through most everything here. Once again, I knew that this was going to be a great discussion. And if I had to do it over again, and I think we need to do it over again, if we promote this as affordable, safe and accessible improvements, spotlight not only this program, spotlight Rebuilding Together, and spotlight some of the suggestions that you brought up, Tori, I think that this will be a very resourceful and interesting discussion in the future. But for those of you who are on the discussion and you might be in a region that doesn't have a program like this, feel free to share this recording, reach out to Tori. I know that I would be thrilled, and I know you too, Tori, if a year from now we heard that somebody in North Dakota was on this discussion and somehow replicated the program or a part of the program that you've been a part of. I think that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. That's the point. That's the reason why we collect the data, is to share that, to share the outcomes and to show people, funders, why it's so important to have this program.
I was very impressed with the data that you've collected, and you know, once again, a reminder with all publicly funded programs that, you know, we're all working hard to pay our taxes and stuff like that. And, you know, you've got to validate things. And the fact that you've done that is fantastic. So, Tori, thank you so much. But once again, these discussions are great because of the folks in the community there. Your questions were amazing. And we hope that this was helpful to you if you're in Philadelphia or Westchester County, or in DC, where you can pick up the phone and take advantage of this program.
Yeah.
And,
so I was going to add, even if you're not in DC, if you have any questions about anything, absolutely feel free to email me. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Excellent. All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Tori. And we will be talking to everybody soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It was nice to meet you.